That time I forgot to close my door. If I don't close my door and somebody walks into my house when I'm doing this, you're going to hear them. Anyway, got my water. Hello, everybody. We're going to talk about building community. So this is a follow-up to Monday's episode. We're going to get this mic situated a little better. I like to be kind of close to the mic for my podcast, but then you guys get this hangy downy thing in my nose. I could actually redo that so the mic faces the other way. Anyway, welcome aboard. Easy water for the win. So we just, as I've said, so if you're new to this and you're just watching it for the first time, you're like, who the hell is Nicole? I don't know why you're here. Probably saw the funny look on my face. I don't know. I'm a podcaster, and I've been recording my podcast live on YouTube on and off. When I do an interview show, I don't do that. Or if I'm in a bad mood, I don't do it. But I'm in a great mood today. We just finished roasting most of the coffee of the month for the month, and it shipped out. We did over 40 packages in 3 hours. That's good for my business. I have an employee who came to help, not an employee, but a friend who kind of kicked in. Anyway, today we're going to talk about community. I will be recording the podcast live. If I screw up, you will see me edit it live. And I will stop. I will re-say what I said. So today's topic is community. I'm going to just get this rolling on the text side. Ooh, I'm so glad that notification came. Mute. It's really fun when I'm in here and all my notices go off or somebody talks on Zello. So this is today's podcast. Let's roll. Let's roll.
Living free in Tennessee.
Welcome, everyone, to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you want to live on your terms. Today is Friday, January 8th, 2020. This is episode 381 of Living Free in Tennessee. Whew, what a week it's been. I mentioned Wednesday that I just got up and made a decision that because I knew a bunch of crap was going to go down, I would stay off of paying attention to crap. Because if you pay attention to crap, the energy you take on is crap. And you can waste a whole day getting a blow by blow by blow of what's going on. And, sometimes you do want to keep informed. But this week I thought, I got a lot of really cool stuff going on. I've got orders I get to send out. I've got 2 events coming really quick, 3 events in the next 3 months coming fast. We are launching Living Free in Tennessee's spring workshop in like next week. And so I have to have all of the event stuff online so you can see what's going on. Later today, I'm sending draft to Mama Sauce to edit of what we're going to put online. And then next week, Friday, to members, Living Free in Tennessee members, we will start the first round of tickets. If we don't sell out to members over the weekend, then the following Monday, which is MLK Day, we will be selling them to the general public. But I got to say, a lot of people have been beating down my door on this one. So when I get the agenda out, you'll see why people are so excited. A couple people, inner circle types who are around when I'm, organizing it have heard some of the people who are going to come speak at the event and some of the topics we're going to cover. It's really cool. Anyway, it's Friday. Usually I do a Thought of the Walk episode, which is about 15, 20 minutes on one concept only that I've been thinking about while walking my dogs, or I interview somebody. And, my interview got double booked today with something else I was doing this morning. So that'll be next week. And hopefully it'll be next week. And then I thought, because of how Monday started, I wanted to take a deeper look at building community today. And I could have put this off until the Monday podcast because it's a perfect Monday podcast topic. But I thought, why not think about this as we go into our weekends? And a lot of us in the community spend the weekend doing things to further our personal independence. I know one of the things I'm doing is really getting my lettuce system go to the next level, because I've started the lettuce, but now I need to transplant it so it will grow. And then I need to start thinking about my schedule for starting seedlings for the spring, because it's already time to think about that in Tennessee. I know some of you in Michigan are probably not ready to think about that yet, but we're totally thinking about it here. So today we're going to talk about just basic foundational principles of building community. And a lot of you have been asking me about how to build community. And I see today's episode as a start on this topic. I have talked about community on other episodes, and I'll put those links in the show notes. But I thought, let's talk about foundational principles. And then after you've heard the show, you can decide, hey, can some of those be combined? Can we simplify it at all? Because the simpler we can be, the more likely it is to work, right? Or did I miss something really big that you're like, you really ought to address this issue? From there, I think we can go into each one over time and talk about what that means as you build your community. Before we do that, I have a couple of announcements. One, the Freedom of Cell event in East Tennessee, that's sort of covering North Carolina, Tennessee stuff, right? Remember that? It's the 16th from 9:30 in the morning till about 3 o'clock at night. It's in Roan Mountain, and we will be staying at a hiker hostel if we're coming from out of town. A number of you are day tripping. We are sold out. If you're like, dang it, I wanted to go. Okay, well, go to livingfreeintennessee.com, click on contact, send me an email saying, dang it, I wanted to go. And then if there's one seat that might open up, and if we can figure out how to squeak you in, we will squeak you in. But right now we are sold out. Second announcement, the Greater Reset event. You've all heard of the Great Reset. From the World Economic Forum, their new vision for how we should reset our economy to be more fair. And they eliminate ownership of anything, no private property, no privacy. And we all just kind of, rent everything. Sounds great, right? That doesn't sound very good to me, honestly. And it doesn't sound very good to me to have a technocratic elite running my life and making decisions for me. Social like ranking. Nah. That sounds like a way to go back to a time of slavery. And I'm not even sure. Well, I know we haven't abolished slavery the last time we were all about slavery in the world, right? There's still slavery. There's slavery in our country in the prison system. So some friends of mine from Unloose the Goose were like, hey, we're going to do something different. We're going to do the Greater Reset Conference. And it's going to be January 25th through 29. It's going to be epic. And it's all about tapping into human ingenuity to make the world we want. We want, right? Not the world they want to have that we live in. So I invite you to check that out. It's thegreaterreset.org. They had a different site set up, greaterreset.net. And that has a little bit more information on it right now than the greaterreset.org. But the central foundational place for information is thegreaterreset.org. The sessions will be done digitally, and they're encouraging people to set up watch parties. So if you're a part of a community and you want to come see, the day that's on growing your own food, right? Then you can host a watch party, invite some friends over, stream the sessions. It'll be really cool. I'll be speaking there on community, which is today's topic. So check it out. You'll hear me say a lot more about it as we get closer to the event. I just wanted to make sure you knew that was going on. And then finally, the Holler Neighbor live stream. Every other Thursday last fall, we were doing this Holler Neighbor live stream. It kind of started in the summer, and y'all kind of enjoyed it. We're still deciding as a neighborhood if we want to keep doing that. So I welcome your input on it. I am also now keeping a daily homestead log, and I've decided to start, but not commit to for the whole year, a weekly vlog, homestead vlog, VLOG. I was going to write up what it's really like to be on a homestead as blog posts, because I feel like my communications in writing is better than in video. But then I thought, I'm a verbalizer, right? That's why I do a podcast. And I'll probably verbally process what's going on and do a better job of telling you what's up on the homestead through the stories of what happens if I do it on a vlog. So we're going to give that a shot. I could really use video editing help, though. I hate it. I hate doing it. I can do it, but if I need to edit these videos, they're not going up. So you're either going to get something that's kind of like spontaneous, like the Holler Neighbor live stream, or if we want something a little more polished, it'd be great to find somebody who wants to do editing for me. If you're like, that sounds interesting, Nicole, go to livingfreeintennessee.com, click on contact, and send me an email with your ideas. Or if you already have my email because you already know me and I didn't think of you, sorry. tell me what's up. You can email me. It's the best way to reach me. And I've just told you how to email me, and I usually do every show, so I'm not going to do that now. With that, it is time for our Friday segment, the LFTN Boost. This is a new segment we launched at the end of last year because so many of you are starting small side hustles, small businesses, big businesses. Some of you have been doing pretty well. Proud of you. And I think it's cool to hear about what other community members are doing. And so I decided, well, let's start highlighting one a week on Friday. This week, I wanted to talk about somebody who is part of the Holler Neighbors, and that is Jenny. You've seen her on the Holler Neighbor live stream. She's the person who spearheaded the word of the year, and she spent a lot of time getting a license as a massage therapist. And this year, she decided rather than work only for a chiropractic clinic or another massage studio, she wanted to do her own thing. So she found an office, a studio in Cookeville, Tennessee, and she spent the Christmas holiday getting it all pimped out and looking good, and new paint on the walls, and furniture in there, all of that. And she is ready to start seeing people who want to heal through massage. So if you are in Tennessee or close enough to drive to get a massage in Cookeville, I encourage you to go to jennyhillmassage.com and reach out to her, make an appointment. Let's let her start January on the right foot, guys, or on the left foot, whichever one doesn't hurt. I'm just joking. Last night she was massaging a friend of mine who has a foot issue. She was helping with that issue in my living room. Like, this is her natural. It's almost like she's found her calling in healing, right? So check it out, jennyhillmassage.com. Book a massage. There are several different options that you can book. Right now, her website has up that you call her, right? And then you book through her. She'll have an automatic booking tool up shortly as well. But don't wait for that. Call her and get an appointment. Let's get her the boost she needs to get her massage studio going. And everybody I've heard who's had a massage from her loves it. Just saying. Okay, with that, it is time for the main topic of today's show, and that's organizing principles of strong communities. Organizing principles of strong communities. A lot of times, what's happened in our society is that a lot of words have changed meaning over my lifetime. And I'm sure it happens. I mean, that language evolves, right? And when you think about community, you think about your church community, or you think about your parents that you hang out with at school, all of these different communities that we have. And what you don't realize is that the real community around you is the one you build. But that doesn't mean that you build a community with a name, right? I look at the Living Free in Tennessee community, and it's getting pretty big. And within the community are subsets of people who kind of gel real well. And the bigger community kind of will do mutual aid for each other, but the smaller little pods within it are also very important. And so I think when people reach out to me and they're distressed because they don't have community around them, I think, that's why I always say participate in the communities that are always there and find your people, right? You're probably already in a community, even if you've just moved to a brand new place. And as long as you're purposeful and invest time in those relationships, the community will grow. What's important is to see who your people are and what that community is. And it doesn't have to be geographically locked, although it's very helpful to have people near you who you can count on, right? So you've got the whole internet giving you access to other people. And if you're only communicating with them on something like Facebook, find alternative ways to communicate. Somebody who I talk to on a regular basis sent me a Facebook this morning. I think she sent it to her whole contact list and said, I'm deleting Facebook. This is how you can reach me. It was her phone number. It was other social profiles. It was her email. Okay? When you have your people and when you've identified who your people are, one of the best things you can do for yourself, and you guys know, I'm doing a bunch of documentation today. And not today, but this month. write down who those people are, how to reach them, look at a map, figure out how to get there. Because if there ever is a time that you need to count on your people, you want to know how to get there, whether or not GPS works, whether or not your phone works, all of it. Like your closest peers are the ones where you could just drive to their house without looking at a map. Start there. That's your community. Okay. And participate in things in your geographical area. If you go to church, there's community. You may not be connected with every single person at your church, but there's always those people you are, right? If you take judo classes, there's your community. If you sing in a choir, there's your community, right? There are so many different ways. The key is to put yourself out there. And a lot of people give me the excuse, well, COVID and shutdowns, I can't put myself out there. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. If you are somebody who needs to, because of immune system issues or whatever, you need to keep yourself from being exposed to a virus, then figure out other ways to connect with people. But there are always a way. When you decide there's a way, there is a way. And I think with more and more bureaucracy and government organization of things, we've started seeing community as the forced community of public school or of, mixed use developments. In cities, they have these things called mixed use developments where the idea is you live in an apartment and you work in the same building and you don't have to travel as much. And that never works because we're human and we get the jobs based on our skills. And in the building may not be our job. And in fact, often 2 hours away is our job or an hour away is our job in those urban environments, right? So it's like this dream that they have that will never work because people move. People have always moved. Even tribal people moved, right? You go where you need to go to build the life you want to live. Sometimes that's not where you are. Sometimes you commute back and forth. So I just wanted to do a quick shout out to the YouTube. Hi, Rose. Guys on YouTube, if you end up having comments or questions that you want me to really see, please put them in all caps or my poor aging eyes won't know what you're up to. Okay. So those are my thoughts on community. A few tangible examples that I thought of as I was just thinking about community are the Underground Railroad. Think about that. You have a network of people with shared values and a mission that managed to smuggle slaves out. That's pretty cool, isn't it? And what was required, if I look at what was required there, you had to have a really high level of trust for everybody in your community. You had to have ways to communicate with each other that didn't get noticed by the people who shouldn't know what was going on, right? But that's the kind of community that we have the power to build right now that we may or may not have built. Does that mean you need to start smuggling slaves out of prison? I don't know. That's a good question. People don't realize how messed up that system is. If you look at countries where there has been more and more and more invasions into people's personal lives and more controls put on people, right? And a more tighter and tighter controlled economy, you often see that the people who do the best, besides the ones who end up at the top of the hierarchy, because even in communism where everybody's supposed to be equal, you end up with a hierarchy, right? Because that's what happens. The people who did best, who were not part of that, were part of underground economies. And it made me start thinking, there's this word underground that we underuse. We underuse it. It's the underground stuff that gets you through. And in order to have that, you need a strong community. You need a high level of trust. And you need to have a good assessment of whatever risks you're taking when you're taking a risk, right? For the Underground Railroad, some people took much greater risks than other people. In the underground economy in Soviet Russia, people took much greater risks than other people. So I was poking around on this Russia thing, and I came across an essay by James von Gelden. And as I was reading it, you know how you read stuff and it's just like, you're like, WTAF, right? What the actual? Here we are talking about Soviet Russia and all the abuses that came from that and why it had to go away, had to be a better way. And the person writing the essay is coming from a standpoint of planned economies are good. I am often astounded that people can still think that planned economies with top-down controls work. It's been tried a lot. It's been tried a lot. I can't think of a single example of where it worked. And the result of them has been such horrid human abuse and suffering and pain. That's been the result of it. That it astounds me that the answer is, well, they didn't do it the right way. What? What the actual? Right? So this is what he says. I'm going to read you his paragraph. The underground economy both aided and impeded the growth of the Soviet economy. Okay, so he's saying here, it aided the growth of the Soviet economy because that was the only way commerce could really happen because they finally got people out of the way by doing it under the, under the radar. Anyway, the system was more efficient when independent agents circumvented artificial price and product controls. Shocked! Thus buffering average citizens from the inefficient allocation of resources by central planners. Okay. Yep. That's why it doesn't work, guys. Those central planners are inefficient. They can't know everything. It's a problem. Growth in the unofficial sector far outstripped growth in the stagnant official economy, yet obligatory lawbreaking had a corrosive effect on society and undermined the legitimacy of the state. So basically he's saying the underground economy undermined the legitimacy of the state because the state was trying to control the economy. Okay, fair enough. Although authorities periodically attempted crackdowns, their ultimate targets were themselves highly placed party officials. That also happens in underground systems, right? You always have those people who are kind of part of both worlds making it happen. Brezhnev's own family was deeply involved in the black market. Many observers mistook black marketeers for proto-capitalists. However, when the fall of the Soviet Union happened in 1991, it took with it the state planning system. They evolved not into entrepreneurs, but into large-scale criminal racketeers who throttle the economy today. So interesting that the people who were best at being bureaucrats and operating on both sides of that map ended up continuing to do that and racketeering. And it's kind of, it's important to look at that because a lot of us think, well, capitalism will solve everything. Well, there are legitimate critiques of capitalism too, right? There really are. And if we can't look at that honestly, then I don't think we have a leg to stand on when we're saying, well, controlled economies don't work. They don't. And if capitalism enables a system, because it's a system of exchange, if capitalism results in a system where there's a controlled economy, well, it's probably not capitalism anymore. But abuses can happen, and you need to think about that, and you need to say, okay, if abuses happen in capitalism, what do we do about it? How do we make it better? If that's the way, if you're going to analyze that. Anyway, I was just like, obligatory lawbreaking had a corrosive effect on society. That's what he says. So the fact that people were underground and going against what society wanted from the government, going against government, it was corrosive. I'm not sure that was the problem. I think it did undermine the legitimacy of the state, and that led to a huge change over there. But then I'm not sure it really has changed over there much. I mean, I guess it has. I don't know. I haven't studied that since then. So I'd love comments from the YouTube about that. Anyway, I'm pointing this out because when you look at how communities form in underground situations, the cancer of a community is when bad actors end up in the community, and there are always bad actors. And we're going to talk about that today, because when you think about foundational principles of community, you think about how do we reduce the impact of bad actors and get rid of them as fast as we can. And a lot of people, when they build community, are thinking, how can I get as many people into my community as possible? That's not your goal. You want quality, not quantity. If I have a strong community of 5 and the world falls apart, I'm way better off than if I have a community of 100,000 50% bad actors, or even 25% bad actors, because that's just going to turn into snippy snappy, right? I would rather have the 5 right ones than 100,000 with the wrong ones in there. That's just my opinion. So I'm going to launch into my list, and I'm hoping you guys just tell me what you think as we go on YouTube, or let me know after you hear this if you have some thoughts. First, when you have a community develop, you need to have a purpose. And it's not that different than the strategic life plan purpose, right? You need to know, okay, so we're a community, we can tell because we hang out and talk to each other, holler neighbors, for example. What is our purpose? Is our purpose hanging out, having beer, watching a football game? That's cool. That's cool. Or is there something more? And as we look at the freedom cell concept, right, one of the reasons to formalize your community in the freedom cell approach is to provide mutual aid. If I look at the Living Free in Tennessee community, they've been providing mutual aid to one another for years. So let's say it out loud. That could be a purpose. It could be developing and sharing best practices about something. A lot of people who do woodworking, for example, may join a guild, and the guild is a community, and the community, the purpose of that is to develop and share best practices. And then along the way, somebody's like, hey, I know where I can get, a really good price on this wood. And then, and that develops the relationship. It could be improving health. You might join a running group or a hiking group. You see how that works? So as you're looking in your life and you're looking at your people, right? Who are your people? Look at, like, is it one big community, or is it kind of subsets? And then what's the purpose? And if there are, a lot of people are motivated right now with this concept of mutual aid and helping each other out, if that's the thing you're interested in getting more of, or if you want to pair that with best practices, develop and sharing them, which is what the LFTN community is, right? It's mutual aid and best practices. Well, reach out to your closest people and say, hey, I think we're kind of a thing. Do you think we're kind of a thing? And this is my idea of what our purpose is. Start having those conversations. Because as you talk, somebody else will say, well, actually, I think our thing is this other thing. And you'll start coming up with a shared purpose. And when you have a shared purpose, you build trust. And when you build trust, you have stronger relationships. When you have stronger relationships, you're in a better place when the shit hits the fan, right? Because it always does. Somebody gets cancer and needs help. Somebody's house burns down. Dr. Barry's house burned down. Dr. Barry, the keto guy. And I think the first thing I did was reach out with the Tennessee GSD, on behalf of the Tennessee GSD crew, and say, does he need help with cleanup? And I didn't have direct contact with him, so I asked through a friend, and the friend reached out to him, and the answer was, nah, don't need help. Insurance is handling it. Well, okay, I didn't know Dr. Barry directly, but I knew he was part of the wider community, and so I did that. So if you're in a community and you hear of somebody who needs mutual aid, and mutual aid is one of the things you guys want to do, then you take talk to the people, are we willing to help? And then talk to the other person, talk to the person who needs help, or talk to the person who knows the person who needs help, and go for it. That's how purpose works. 2, strong communities have open communication. And by open communication, I don't mean you're talking all the time on Telegram or whatever. I mean, even about the bad stuff. I mean, addressing when somebody hurts somebody else's feelings. Like the person whose feelings were hurt says, you hurt my feelings. I mean, and then the person who hears it. and they decide together what to do about it. Open communication, giving and making space. Being able to say, I actually just need to be alone for a few days right now because I need to deal with my own stuff, right? Asking for what you need. And I can tell you, me asking for what I need, that's the hardest thing for me out of all of that. I've gotten pretty good at bringing up the bad stuff and talking about it. I'm good at giving space. I'm not good at making space for myself, but I'm getting better at that. But asking for what I need is really hard. And in a community, it's also okay to ask. If you ask all the time and never help, you're going to end up being the bad actor in the community who gets out. I have a comment here from YouTube. Community doesn't mean people you love either. I have people I love dearly that are clueless. Yeah. When I mean find your people, you may love somebody who doesn't fit your community, and you may end up, they may be a family member, and you may end up taking care of them and all of that. But in the purposeful community development, they may just not fit. And that's okay. What you're going to find when you develop your community, in air quotes, is that you're in more than one community, right? I'm in the TSP community. I'm in the LFTN community. I'm a hauler neighbor. I'm part of my family community. I have two family communities. Really, it branches off into two sides. One's a little better at mutual aid than the other. I will say that. So there are lots of ways. I'm in a choir community. It's very different. It has a different purpose, but they overlap. And if I hear about my friend Amanda, who's a school teacher, if I hear that she needs something and I have something I can give her, I will. I was in the libertarian free market think tank movement. And as part of that, I was part of a community. And when I stopped doing that job, a lot of the people I talked to just disappeared from my life. Some of them are pretty good friends to this day, though. And when I hear they need something and I have it, like I literally mailed somebody a pound of, what are those things? Pecans, because they couldn't get pecans for their Thanksgiving pie this year or last year now, right? This most recent Thanksgiving. So, you know, that's what you do. But that's not my quote unquote mutual aid community. That's somebody I know who I'm going to give a hand if I can. If I have excess of something and somebody needs something, I will share it. So anyway, open communication. Next is principle over process. This one's very important. This is why the Tennessee GSD crew works. Principle over process. We don't have an overly bureaucratic process about how you get into it, how you get a GSD weekend at your house, if you're allowed to come or not. It's not a thing. What we have are a core group of people who are pretty good friends, who have spent a fair amount of time around the campfire with beer in our hands. And we've also, we're jittery people. We like to do things with our hands. So one thing you can do with your hands is build a composting outhouse. That's going to be on my GSD list this year. And if like 7 or 8 of us work on that, it gets done in half a day. And then the rest of the day, we eat really good food and have a good time. Or if somebody wants an aquaponics system, we've built a few of those. So you see how that works. To get into the TNGSD crew, you don't fill out an application and prove that you're in Tennessee. There are people who've worked on Tennessee GSD projects who are not in Tennessee. You don't, in fact, the whole crew has gone to Missouri once to go see Dory. We didn't do much for her. I think we just pretty much hung out there and did a site visit. It's not overly bureaucratic, but we have principles. You have to, like, if you're going to get involved with the TNGSD crew, as it is with Living Free in Tennessee, right? You need to get to know us. How do you get to know us? Come to one of our things when we have a thing. Or get to know one of us if we're near you. Say, hey, I want to, talk to you over a beer or something. And as you get to know us and come to the occasional event, other events may pop up that we didn't publicize, because some of our GSD stuff is, you don't want 50 people at your house trying to put an aquaponics system in when you can only handle 6 or 7, right? So over time, as trust builds, you're there. And then after you've done a few projects with us and you're like, hey, I have a project, a lot of times people will come help you with your project. So that's how that works. It's principle over process. We're looking for people who are trustworthy, who keep their word, who aren't just there to get the quote unquote free work, right? I think it is the many details of process and bureaucracy that make communities become federalized. And when communities become federalized, they fall apart. What you'll end up having is a bunch of processes you have to do to be involved in the community. And some people who are diehards in that community will do anything for it, will do that. And people who don't mind doing paperwork will be there and they'll count the beans. And the community over time will spend more time tracking itself than doing the thing it was supposed to do, which is its purpose. That's how you actually waver from your purpose, right? Too much bureaucracy gets put into place. I see this in communities time over time, and your best people for the doing it part of things will leave when that happens. If it's especially difficult, because we'll talk later about like highest, like let people who are good at things do the things they're best at. Sometimes you need that paperwork person. If the paperwork people take over, you lose the doers. If the doers are the only ones who are in your group, you lose the balance of actually tracking some things that need to be tracked or thinking things through. I've been having this repetitive conversation with somebody in our community about ham radio. And I finally figured out, and it's been like, we're butting heads because I'm asking for something, but I don't understand ham radio really. And he's trying to answer and he's like trying to help, but can't quite tell what I want or can't think of the best way to do it. And I finally figured out what I need to do is get my stupid ham license and get on a ham radio and learn how to do it so that I have a better foundation, because I'm asking for something that doesn't exist. And I'm not communicating my bigger picture purpose very well. And until I do that, I need to have a better understanding of what exists, because I don't need us to invent a new wheel. I was looking for a foundation. So I am going back to the drawing board and dealing with that so I can talk to this person about the bigger vision of why I'm asking the question, right? Principle over process on that one. Okay. Fourth is make sure that member expectations are right out front. And the expectation I see is everybody brings something to the table, right? You need to be like, this is what you bring to the table. This is what that means for the community. If what you bring to the table as part of the Tennessee GSD community is willing to work on Tennessee GSD things and have a good time and keep your word, that's what that means, right? Consequences of being a bad actor. What is a bad actor? Some people don't understand what a bad actor is in the community. And sometimes you don't mean to be a bad actor and you are, but if you come new to a community and start like being way too involved or way too interested or way too needy, you will be perceived as a bad actor. So you'll be really excited, and perhaps the way you communicate your excitement is to be like all in. New to a community, take a chill pill. Talk with your ears. Ask some questions. Don't ask too many personal questions, and get to know people. And then you'll see like how it all gels. I've seen a lot of people, especially very, very active doers, go into communities and just like nuke themselves out because they're just way too eager, right? And they often, what it is like they come to something like the TN. I mean, this has never happened in the TNGSD crew, but I'm just using that as this. I'm making up an example. They'll come to the TNGSD crew and be like, I have all the tools and all the knowledge. I'm going to show you how to do aquaponics. Okay, you're talking to a group of people who've installed multiple aquaponics systems. You probably do know more than they are. But if you come in telling them you know more than they do, you come off as a know-it-all and nobody listens to you, right? So when you have something to offer, be gentle about it, let people ask. And then over time, you may become the aquaponics guy or the electrician guy, right? We have the electric guy, all of this. That's what has happened naturally. So I think other member expectations that you really have to have is a drama-free environment. When I start seeing drama in communities over which I have influence, I do my best to crack down on drama. I have had to go so far as to tell people to stop, like to leave. And that's why those communities are still there, Every so often drama bubbles up. And I don't mean somebody saying I had a bad day, right? That happens to all of us. But if somebody's like every single day, all the time, drama, bad, then you need to crack down on that. Or if every time a certain person comes, it turns into this big like talky behind backy thing, that's a bad actor. Be clear with your members in the community, if you're going to have a more formal membership, that that's a bad actor. So they know not to do that. Because a lot of people have been brought up in the expectation of gossipy, picky stuff. Gossipy, picky stuff gets us nowhere. In fact, it undermines the quality of the community. And if you have people who are doing that in your community and you're afraid to kick them out because, well, you know, our community needs to grow. No, it doesn't. That person needs to go. They need to change or they need to go. That's the way it is. You need to have a good moral foundation. People, you know, I keep talking about how important trust is, right? People who have good moral foundations do better in your community than people who do not have good moral foundations. Do I mean they need to be a certain religion or another? No. But keeping your word, high level of trust, some idea of what's good or bad, you know, right or wrong. Pretty important. And you have to have a way for conflict resolution because no matter how good you are, there will be conflict. And the best way for conflicts to resolve is for them to resolve themselves. But if there needs to be mediation at some point, especially in a purposeful community, have up front under member expectations what that is. So they know, okay, I actually do need a mediator. This is how I get a mediator involved, right? If it's a thing. Okay. Sixth thing. Get real about strengths and weaknesses. This is the hardest one for all of us because we all wish we're strong in areas where we are weak. I'm only human, right? That is how it is. I personally could never be a good accountant. I can make myself do accounting. I can be fairly accurate on accounting. I hate accounting. I am never going to be the bean counter. When people ask me to be treasurer for nonprofit boards, I'm like, you don't know me. Why would you want? I will screw up your books so bad because I won't do them, right? You got to know your strengths and weaknesses. I know that's one of my weaknesses, and I don't put myself in situations where anybody's counting on it. That's likewise for members of your groups. As you form a cohesive community, you'll discover some of you are good at one thing and some of you are good at another. And let's say you have somebody who's pretty good at planning meals for events and cooking for everybody. And the event is not at their house, it's at somebody else's house. And that person is really good at organizing work crews to do the work. You don't want the work crew organizer in the kitchen and the kitchen person in the work crew, right? If you talk in advance, you can be like, actually, you're pretty good at meals. Can you do meals for my event so I can run the work crew? That's that person's GSD contribution, by the way. It all works. Everybody's working to their strengths. Now, that doesn't mean you never do anything you don't like to do. But every member has at least one Achilles heel. And a lot of us don't like being vulnerable, but if you have an Achilles heel and you're in a community that's focused around mutual aid, at some point you need to tell people what that is so they're not surprised by it, right? So they don't make you the treasurer. Or if they do ask you to be the treasurer, you say, yeah, my Achilles heel is this. And no, I'm not doing that. So knowing your strengths and weaknesses is very important, and then seek to set things up to play to people's strengths, right? Everybody needs to muck out the pig pen at one point in a community if you're dealing with if pigs are your thing. But, you know, you don't need to be putting the person who's best at running the kitchen on the work crew and vice versa. You know, we know how that ends, right? And then if you do that well, you actually have a lot less conflict in your community. And if you go back to clear communication, which we talked about earlier, everybody knows why people are doing what they're doing. And that's important, because when people know why people are doing what they're doing, there's less like of that that person, blah, 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 blah. You know, there's less of that feeling of chagrin that people get. Okay. Principle 7, make time for relationship development and fun. We get all into doing choir or all into doing GSD or all into providing this network of mutual aid. Do you know how dangerous it is to make your purpose mutual aid? Because you got to track who has what, where they are, how do they communicate, how to get things from one place to another, how to get information, who's worthy of blah. Right? Again, clerical nightmare. Doesn't have to be, though. Doesn't have to be. And if you make time for fun and relationship development, what'll happen is natural connections. When you have natural connections, you don't have to manage that all from the top down. Woohoo! Even better if you had a tool that you can, I don't know, like freedomcells.org, where you could post things. You can use a tool, whatever that tool is, or Telegram, where you can just let people initiate their own stuff. When I put this one in here as a principle, I thought, it should be higher in the list, but then I looked at all the other things on the list and they're also pretty important. So I put it here. If you think about the military, even at war, people end up making time to play. You see, unless they weren't there very long because of an unfortunate incident, even in very stressful situations, if they go on for any length of time, fun happens somewhere. And it's very easy to get so hyper-focused on your mission that you forget to have fun. If you forget to have fun, you don't get that relief. And if you don't get that relief in your brain or that space, you might actually miss doing something more effectively than you could have, right? So likewise, for communities that you're involved in, the more you make time to develop real relationship foundations, the better your community is going to be. A great way to do that is to go on kayaking trips together or whatever, play yard games. I don't know. If you're online, play Dungeons and Dragons. I don't care. Just do some fun things, because that also helps invest into the trust bank account. And if you're one of those people who's an introvert and you find it stressful to do community activities, do it anyway. I'm an introvert. I'm going to go to a Freedom Cell event. I'm going to sing some karaoke. I'm going to do sessions. I'm going to eat way too many baked clams, which is probably going to put me off keto for that day. And I'm going to have a good time. And if there's a dartboard, I'll play darts. I don't know. I will do it. And then I'm going to go home on Sunday. I'm going to make sure my animals are all okay. And I'm going to sleep for about 27 hours. No, I'll probably sleep for 12, though. I get really exhausted after those things because I regenerate when I'm by myself, and I'm not going to be by myself for a couple of days. But I enjoy myself when I'm doing those things, right? A lot of people feel awkward at events like that. But what I learned over time, because I used to be that person, oh, everybody's looking at me. Everybody is not looking at you, first of all. And secondly, if you stop worrying about what people think of you at an event like that and just choose the thing to do or the way to participate, you'll actually have a lot of fun, especially when you're around your people, right? That's the thing. If you're in a community of your people, it shouldn't be a big, scary thing to go to a Freedom Cell event. Well, for me, it's not a big, scary thing. But you see what I'm saying there, right? It's because I prioritize time for relationship development and fun. The 8th principle, which maybe should be the first principle, it really helps set the foundation for a drama-free environment. Let it go, let it go, let it go. Shit is going to piss you off. People are going to say things that you take wrong. People are going to say things that are just plain mean in your community. And they're going to mean it probably because they're mad at you. Let it go. You're going to feel like, oh, let it go. I almost didn't put this in, but I thought I have to, because we have community members who over-rotate on little things, right? The tone of somebody's voice when they say something. They worry about slights. They get mad at people for crossing their boundaries when they haven't clearly set their boundaries, so people didn't know they crossed them, right? The whole world has people like that. The model of communication we have on the internet, on social media, is people overreacting to stuff and over-rotating of stuff and taking stuff out of context and not forgiving people when they get mad and say something they probably shouldn't have said, right? The more we can let it go, the better we are. Almost all conflict resolution comes from inside you, not from the other person changing. And letting it go is a big part of that. Even if somebody else was a total asshole, I am still friends with total assholes to this day who have been really mean to me because I let it go. I realized they were in a bad place when that happened, and we got over it. I am also not friends with some total assholes who are just not coming from the right place, and the one thing I could control was whether or not I have them in my life. So I don't have them in my life. And then I don't need to, I let it go in a different way, right? So turn the other cheek doesn't mean necessarily expose yourself to violence and beratement, right? But it means taking care of the you problems in a conversation or in an interaction. And then when you see that something didn't go right, analyze that and say, how do I break that cycle next time so you don't repeat it? But if everybody in your community is the kind of person who's willing to let it go, your community gets stronger. Again, this doesn't mean don't resolve the conflicts when they come. You need to resolve conflicts, because if you are holding a little baggage forward, the baggage gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and pretty much you go, blah, and you explode. You don't want to do that either. Okay. The last one, which should also be all of these should be the first one. Cut the chaff. Eliminate the chaff. I still have chaff in my hair from roasting today, probably. I tried to get it all out before I went on video, but chaff is like the part of the coffee bean that tastes bitter, that kind of cracks off when it gets roasted. And if you leave the chaff in with the beans when you make the coffee, it makes it taste bad. It'll make the whole batch that you brewed or that you roasted taste bad. Even a little bit of chaff is not good. Like a tiny, tiny amount of chaff is just going to be in any like powdered chaff will be there. But get rid of the chaff, blow it off. Every community has bad actors, no matter how purposeful you are about how your community grows. And really, it shouldn't be you being purposeful about it, but your community being purposeful about it. You're going to have the occasional one who comes in is just like, wow, that was not a good idea. Eliminate them swiftly. If you're in a leadership role, that may mean you have to have a conversation with an adult as if they're 3-year-old, saying, if you continue to behave this way, you're going to have to leave. Or they may have gone so far over the edge that they need to leave, right? Kind of like add members slowly as you get to know them and cut them quickly if it's just the wrong fit. That doesn't mean you don't tell people when they're doing something that needs to change. And it doesn't mean like micromanage every single activity anybody does, right? But it does mean when you've identified that there is chaff, eliminate it. Whether it's you or a different leader or the whole community. I don't know how depending on how your community is set up, that's how it will happen. It's amazing how high quality your group can be when chaff is eliminated, especially if it's done swiftly. And, people will want to be in the community where the bad actors are not. It's funny. I was on the phone with a friend who was just like, I'm ready for a different job because this one person. And I thought, that's chaff. They're allowing the chaff to stay. What will happen is all their good people will leave and they will have only chaff left. That's why you eliminate the chaff. Same with coffee, right? I want the beans, not the chaff. So building community is not something you generally have to start on your own. As I mentioned, it will happen. It's already there. It doesn't work that way that you just stay like, I'm a little person, I'm going to start a community. And then another person comes along and we have a 2-person community. And then a third. You see what I'm saying? Like, the way to start community is look around you and see what you're already in. Like, I can think of one time I started I and other people started a purposeful community. And it was after seeing the strength of Liberty on the Rocks in Colorado, which was a group of people who got together at a pub once a month, had drinks together, no presentations, just hung out, got to know each other, and they were all kind of liberty oriented. It was a meetup. And over time, they developed pretty strong relationships. And then they were able to achieve quite a bit as a group in their local area. So it became a nonprofit. People started chapters all over the country. And Nashville, Tennessee, we decided, well, we should start one of those here. And so like 3 or 4 of us got together. One person in particular really wanted to start it. Her name was Melissa, and scheduled a meetup. And that first meetup, 4 people came. 2 of them owned the restaurant where it was. Halfway through the night, a 5th person showed up. Do you know what happened over time? Liberty on the Rocks Nashville is going to this day. If you are in Nashville and you're hearing this and you're like, what? Go on Facebook, look them up, join the group, and go to the next meetup. They have a meetup once a month. I think it's the 3rd Thursday most of the time. It's at a different location than it used to be, but they've become quite a tight community, and that, you know, people flow in and out of it. But that's because after that first night, when 4 or 5 people showed up, nobody freaked out. They just met the next month, and the next month, and the next month, and the next month. And then they did some kayak trips together, and they had some camping events, and, you know, like it naturally grew. So what started as a quote unquote purposeful community was really people who already knew each other, right? Who were already a community, sitting down, having some drinks, telling their people about it. Those people told their people about it, and it turned into a community. It's kind of that simple. I think if you're starting something like that, having that consistent schedule for a meetup, if you're going to do a meetup, super helpful. Same location, same schedule. Oh, it's the 3rd Thursday. Got to go, right? So I know a lot of you feel urgent because you're thinking that you're alone right now and you want to be part of a community. But if you're listening to my podcast, you're probably already part of our community. If you're not, like, check us out, get involved on social, and get to know us. You may feel urgent, but having a community of mutual aid is not something you suddenly do. It is something that will grow over time. It's kind of like a little spark when you're banging flints, right? Sparks, it sparks, it sparks. Then it catches on a flame. It's a little teeny flame. And if you add too much to it, the flame goes out. But if you foster that flame, it turns into a fire. Then it catches a piece of wood on fire. And then you have this bonfire that's awesome, right? It's all going to go at its own pace depending on what kind of fuel you have and what kind of fuel and how the fuel is organized. But if you set a good foundation of good dry tinder and good dry kindling and good dry firewood, over time that will grow. You might even have to guide it from time to time. But what's most important is to let it develop into what it will be. With that, if you like the show and want to support the work I do here at Living Free in Tennessee, you can do it in a couple ways. One, well, this doesn't support the show, but there is a Freedom Cell event where we are a community in Tennessee and North Carolina at this point. I mean, Freedom Cells are all over the country. If you want to go, the link is in the show notes. Click there, go to my website, send me an email. We'll see if we can shoehorn you in. It is the 16th in Roan Mountain, and it will be from about 9:30 in the morning till about 3 is the sessions. But we're going to have facilitated discussions. We're going to learn about wild edible plants. There's probably going to be some discussion about ham radio now. I just heard about that. And off-grid living. I'll talk about community. It's a really good example of something you can go do where you meet people. Just saying. And if you can't make that one, go to freedomcells.org and do see if there's a chapter near you and see if you can get involved with those people. But back to supporting the show, get your coffee at hollowroast.com. I promise to send it to you without chaff. I do. And then you can also become a member of the Living Free in Tennessee podcast. Just go to Living Free in Tennessee, click on membership, and sign up. With that, guys, go out, make it a great week. And the recording's done. Hey, guys on YouTube, thanks for joining. I hope that answered some of your questions about community that came out on Friday. I'm going to end the stream now because we're not getting a lot of chat back and forth, but make the great week. Or weekend, is that case. It's Friday, isn't it? It's Friday.